What exactly can $10,000 get you in the world of Toyota 4Runners?
Well, I recently bought one, and before you ask, no, it's not this one.
Now, if you would have told me a few days ago that I would have been buying an additional 4Runner, I would not have believed you. But it's actually a pretty crazy story of how it all unfolded. So there I was on Facebook Marketplace, scrolling late at night, looking for deals as one does. And I'm going to be completely honest, I was not at all looking for a 4Runner. I already have one, obviously. I was more looking for a first generation Tundra or an early 2000s GX470, but there was a listing that caught my eye. Now, from my Facebook Marketplace in my area, there really hasn't been much at all going on, just a lot of very, very high mileage, poor condition vehicles. And so I was definitely not expecting to see what I came across. So as I was looking, I came across a certain listing in particular, and it was a 4Runner, a 2008 4Runner, and the pictures were not very good. The listing title was very vague, and the listing all around wasn't very good. Now, most of the time, if the listing is like that, it's probably nothing. But of course, I had to investigate. Now, as I looked closer at the listing, I started to realize this was a deal I definitely needed to check out. So that's exactly what I did. I shot the seller a text and I told him, hey man, I'm only about 40 minutes away. I would love to come look at the vehicle. He got me back the next day and said, come take a look. So there I got in my car and I went and looked at it. Now, the story behind this particular 4Runner is super interesting, and I'm going to share that with you in a second, but I just want to go ahead and reveal the car. That way I don't have to keep you guys waiting anymore. So sitting in the driveway directly next to my 2006 fourth generation 4Runner, I now have a 2008 fourth generation 4Runner. Now, yes, these vehicles are extremely similar, and I'm going to tell you exactly why I bought it and the details on the vehicle. So there were a few things about this vehicle that absolutely jumped out at me when viewing it on Facebook Marketplace. The first being the mileage. Now, this has just over 100,000 miles on the odometer. Now, that isn't unbelievably low, but it certainly is on the much, much lower end for the year, and especially a 4Runner, which tends to get driven a lot. The second thing that impressed me was the overall condition of the vehicle. A few common problems on this car are a cracked dash. Now, this dash is, of course, pristine. The interior is also in great shape. The only cosmetic issue is that there is a small tear in the seat over here, which is unfortunate, but not too big of a deal. Going into the back, it is also very, very pristine in here. The guy was nice enough to clean it before he sold it to me, so that was nice. And even in the very back, there's just no big flaws with this, and that's what I like about it so much. So as you can see, the paint on this car is also in incredibly good condition. And of course, the first thing I asked him before I went to look at it, I said, what's the frame look like? The frame and undercarriage is also completely rust-free, which is a must for me if I'm going to buy one of these older generation 4Runners. So let me sit here and tell you the story of how I acquired this. Now, it was about a 45-minute drive. I actually took my mom with me because it was on pretty short notice. I drove all the way out there and I pulled up and the guy was kind of like, why do you need another 4Runner? You already got one. And I was like, oh, I love building 4Runners and modding them out. And so we got to talking. So it turns out that this seller was actually from very far up north, I think Washington, he said. And he had bought this vehicle in 2021 for $15K. Now, when he bought it, there was a few things wrong with it that he since fixed, but he bought it with 97,000 miles on it, and he fixed the problems that were with it, and he let it sit down south when he went back up north. And the reason he had it sitting was he didn't want to have to rent a rental car when he flew down to visit his family, and he just wanted something that he could drive. So this car was bought with 97,000 miles, already low, and then it sat in a garage for 3 years, and over those 3 years, it was driven just under 10,000 miles. I think it was 3,000 miles a year, and that is why it has such low miles, which I thought was pretty interesting. So after we talked for a little bit, I got under the car, I looked at the frame, I popped the hood, I checked out the engine, all the normal things that you tend to do when looking at a used vehicle. I then took it around the block, everything was perfect, it drove great, it had no issues, not even a check engine light, nothing. And so I was like, at this point, really low miles, really good condition. I'm definitely interested in the vehicle. Just, if nothing else, I could get some good value out of it just by cleaning it up, maybe putting a few mods on it, and then listing a better listing on Facebook. So then he goes on to tell me that he put a few things on it while he owned it. He put a sound system in, a new head unit, which I'll show you in a second, new door speakers, an amp. He also put the bull bar on the front and a few other small modifications just to kind of tie the whole thing together. So at this point, I'm like, he paid $15,000 for it, which is a little bit high, but I wasn't going to tell him that. He then put about $1,000 to $2,000 worth of mods. The stereo was about $800 by itself. He gave me the receipt to that. And all the other stuff combined, I was starting to think that this might be a really good deal. Now, he had it listed at $11,500, which is a good deal, not necessarily an amazing deal. And so I talked to him about it and I said, you know, I like the 4Runner. I'm definitely interested in the 4Runner, but I was hoping you had a little wiggle room on the price. And so basically he told me, you know, I'm about to go back up north. I don't want to have to deal with this. I feel like 11.5 is a number that is priced to sell. That is fair. And in my head, I was agreeing with him. Now, I wouldn't have bought it for 11.5, but someone out there might have wanted it for 11.5. So then I told him, I said, driving over here, in my head, I had 10.5. I feel like 10.5 would give me a good number to where I was happy with my purchase. And so he kind of joked about me trying to haggle him down, and then he talked about how good the condition of the car was, which I agreed with. And then I mentioned, the rip in the seat and maybe a few other tiny things that I had found. And he said, well, I think 11,000 would be my bottom dollar, which I respected. 11,000 is a good price. And I told him, that's fair. That's a fair price. But I would be confident if I was able to give you $10,800 for the vehicle. And he kind of had to think about it just because he had literally just told me 11,000 was his bottom dollar. And so I dropped the age-old line on him. I said 10,800 is my best offer. And by the way, I brought a big stack of hundreds right here.
Write checks, how do you pay these guys?
Straight cash, homie.
And so he heard that and he thought about it and he said, well, I have 4 other people that want to come see it today, but you were the first and they obviously haven't shown up and looked at it yet, and I just want to get it out of here, and so let's do 10.8. And so he accepted my offer of 10.8. We got everything worked out, and I was on my way with a new 4Runner.
So here's the radio he had put in. It's a nice radio. It's got Bluetooth connectivity, CarPlay, and all that. Also the door speakers, which he mentioned, and this little bull bar on the front, and I have not decided whether or not I want to keep that on, but it is there.
So now I do own 2 4Runners. Now, if it was anything other than a 4Runner, I probably wouldn't have doubled up. I'm just a huge fan of these 4th gens, the reliability, how they ride, how they look. And so that was the reason I wanted to kind of get another one. Now, it is true, I wish this was a V8. I wish this was a 4-wheel drive model. But look, the deal was too good to pass up. The deals before this on my marketplace were like 280,000 miles rusted frame for like 9,000. Nobody's going to buy that, all right? Nobody wanted that. So when I saw this pop up, I knew at the very least it would be a good value and it would be something that I can build. So what are my plans for this 4Runner in regards to the channel? Well, I plan on making an extensive upgrade series. I actually want to deck this thing out similar to what I did to my 2006. I made a mock-up of what I want this car to look like by the time I'm done, so you can check that out right now. But like I said, I plan on doing a ton to this vehicle. I want to add grille, headlights, fog lights, maybe custom badges, a lift, tires, all kinds of good stuff. So definitely subscribe to follow along the journey of this vehicle. And also, I'm not going to give up on the builds of my 2006 or my 2006 Sequoia. Those are still going to be built on my channel, so make sure you follow along to see tons of really cool upgrading, off-roading, and Toyota content coming in the near future. Now, at the end of the day, all these reasons I've given you of why I bought a second 4Runner, you might not buy them, but at the end of the day, I really do love upgrading these vehicles. And so this is kind of just to document my journey to do something
fun and exciting, and also to add another great vehicle to my fleet. Now, given the condition and the miles of this vehicle, I believe my $10,000 was well spent. But tell me, what do you think? Some of you might not think this is the best deal. Some of you might think it's a great deal. I don't know. So go ahead and comment maybe what some of the mods you want me to put on this vehicle, some of the things you want me to do to it, and what you think of the whole deal and the story. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.